A fundamental element of an RPG is the ability to talk to an NPC, oftentimes to make decisions that will impact the game world, making it feel like your actions had an effect, when they didn't and nothing you do will ever matter. But what if you wanted to be the quiet kid who sits in the front of the bus asking the teachers about what they think of his nose gold? Can you beat Fallout 3 without talking to anyone? The simple answer is no, obviously you can't, but there are steps you can take to limit the number of people you have to interact with. As for what counts as talking to anyone, anything that involves the dialogue menu. If you see the option to tell them goodbye, you've already failed. Naturally, that comes with its own set of challenges. The beginning of the game is dead simple. I've done this multiple times by now. It's just that this time I'm abandoning my father instead of him abandoning me. Now I could have, within the limitations of this challenge, assigned my special points before I began my grand escape. You don't speak to your father during this part of the game. You can make baby noises at him, but you don't have to. You can walk up to him, say nothing, he'll leave you alone with an assortment of different choking hazards, and you can assign your special points, but it's unnecessary. To begin escaping the vault as a baby, you abuse the game's instantaneous quick save quick load mechanic to glitch yourself through a wall, at which point you'll fall through the eternity of gray nothing and be placed at a part of the vault you can only be in if your current objective is to escape the vault. It was harder than usual to transcend reality and make the wall my I couldn't tell you why. Going back to special stats for a moment, I didn't bother assigning them, because the only enemies you'll find in the vault at this point, because things are a little weird, is a handful of rad roaches. As usual, I was completely defenseless against them. Babies naturally suck at hand-to-hand combat and lack the fine motor skills required to hold a gun, so you can't go on the offensive to take the fight to the bugs that probably weigh more than both your legs combined. Then you just snag the Overseer's key, open the tunnel, waddle to the vault door, and you're given the option to make any last-minute modifications to your character before entering the real meat of Fallout 3. I wasn't sure which way I wanted to go with any of my stats, so I just drained Charisma and evenly distributed the remaining points to have both a well-rounded character and to have a solid assortment of perks to pick from upon leveling up. Out into the capital wasteland, things went downhill quickly. The only challenge that broke my heart this early on was the Fallout 3 without moving the camera video. If you've seen a couple of my other Fallout 3 videos, such as the one I just mentioned, you probably have an idea of what the problem is here. See, by escaping the vault as a baby, you're never given the Pip-Boy by the Overseer at your 10th birthday, because you're still too stupid to be a 10-year-old. Normally, it's a momentary annoyance that is solved by talking to Lucas Sims in Megaton, but I can't talk to Lucas Sims. I can't talk to anyone, which means the problem can never be solved. You're probably wondering what the other casualties are from this inability to obtain a Pip-Boy. They are many, and they are disastrous. Obviously, without a Pip-Boy, you can't equip any weapons of any kind. You can't equip any armor either. You also can't use any healing items or look at the map, set any waypoints, fast travel to any location, or even listen to the radio. Now remember that I'm also still a baby. I can't outrun a mole rat, or a vicious dog, or a rad scorpion, or anything that has a pair of functioning legs. But it gets worse. Good God, I wish those were the only things I couldn't do. 372 words ago, I told you that I was defenseless while in the vault. Because nothing has changed since then, I'm also defenseless outside of the vault. Not only can I not equip any weapons, I can't smack people with my barely developed hands. I have absolutely no way of attacking anything. You know what else I can't do? I can't sneak. The medical explanation, if my 0 seconds of research and completely baseless assumption is to be believed, has to do with a baby's legs not having kneecaps yet. Most people don't get kneecaps until they hit puberty. So let's recap what I can do in Fallout 3 at the moment. I can walk around, I can jump, and that's about it. Going into it, I knew it was gonna be a complete show, but I had a plan. I was gonna wing it. Metaphorically shoot from the hip, and just see what juices I can squeeze from the lifeless corpse of a game. The first and primary concern was getting to Little Lamplight. Going down the main quest line isn't an option. You'll hit a roadblock eventually, specifically during your 10th birthday where you have to shoot the rad roach. You can't do that without talking to Dad, as you don't get the BB gun unless you talk to him. I ran into the first real problem in the form of an escaped slave, who for some reason ran up to a baby and asked it to help get her collar off. I wasn't sure if this counted as talking to someone or not. She runs up to you, says something, you make a decision, then she explodes. You don't have to say anything, but the NPC talking text box pops up nonetheless. I trusted my gut after getting covered in hers, and reloaded a save to take a slightly different path to Little Lamplight. I don't need to say too much about how annoying it is to once again travel from Vault 101 to Little Lamplight as a baby. It sucks and takes a long time. I may have even attempted baby's first suicide by jumping off a cliff. That was a doozy of a sentence, wasn't it? The next obstacle in my path came in the form of mutated creatures harassing me just outside of Smith Casey's garage. A bloatfly and a mole rat to be specific. I sought refuge inside the garage, hoping to wait for a while until the unpleasantness outside subsided. Couldn't wait inside because of the roaches and mole rats in the next room that I had no means of destroying. There are children outside, yelling, being annoying. They're gonna die. In theory, I could let them tear chunks of flesh off my body as I ran helplessly into the loving arms of a rusty barrel that, with all that action, may start flying around and cause damage to them. It's happened before, but with no way to heal myself, that wasn't a risk I was going to take. I tried one time to outrun the creatures outside waiting for me on the other side of the door, before realizing how futile that effort was. Something exploded, and I saw what I really looked like. It was, well, that's a baby alright. I went back to the bridge of shattered legs, and again took a new path towards Little Lamplight, completely ignoring Smith Casey's garage. I remember slamming on the brakes while I looked at Goo Lagoon. I was gonna use this moment to talk about something in the video, but my mind can't recall what that something was going to be. Maybe it was gonna be about the summer sausage I left in my mailbox for a month to fry in the sun of Michigan's midday sun, before freezing solid again when darkness reclaimed the state. In time, as I always do, I made it to Little Lamplight. I also paused the challenge to see if there are any hidden surprises in this treehouse. There isn't. Inside Lamplight, I used the tried and true quick save trick to get through a wall near the entrance to avoid having to speak to the world's most densely packed ego. From there, I attempted to clip through the wall at the usual spot. Getting into the correct position is difficult when you're small and can barely jump an inch off the ground. After failing at that spot, I entered the Great Chamber, clipped through the wall, and blew my own mind. I was inside Vault 87. I had no idea this was possible. I'd wasted so much time in other runs by not doing this. For the briefest of moments, there was actual enthusiasm in my voice. It didn't last long. This isn't Vault 87. It's an entrance to Vault 87 in the back of Little Lamplight. If you had a high enough science skill, you could hack the door and get inside, and, theoretically, I could have done that. Intelligence of 10 and luck of 10 will put your starting science skill at 27. Add 15 points by picking science as a tag skill, and 17 more points by leveling up after you exit Vault 101, and your science skill is at 59. An average terminal only requires 50 science to open. Perhaps that will come into play in a later challenge. Not that I even plan on playing Fallout 3 again after this. This game died a year ago, and all I've been doing since then is desecrating the corpse. After I spent 15 years walking back from the Great Chamber to the gate of Murder Pass, I clipped through the side of the gate, entered Murder Pass, and let the suffering begin. I've done this before and it's never fun. You're so slow that every mutant you pass will be able to keep up with you and attack you constantly. The only thing working to your advantage is that because of your size, their attacks miss more frequently than they normally would. By the time I got to the reactor chamber, my health was nearly gone, and with no way to heal myself, I was out of ideas. The reactor chamber is home to more mutants with better weaponry than those in Murder Pass. I had no hope of sneaking past them, and that was where I left the challenge for a while, in a stalemate between man and machine. In the time between the second and third recording for this video, I played through Diablo 3. That video will be out either before or after this one, because that's how time works, and came up with no ideas for how to proceed. That's sort of a lie. I had an idea, it just wasn't a good one. This run experienced a seismic ideological shift in what the core concept of this challenge really is. In the beginning, it was a video about whether or not I can do this. I can't. Without the ability to heal, I could not get through Murder Pass with enough health to reach the Gek. So this video became an is it possible type video. If, in some magical hypothetical scenario, you could contend with the super mutants, how much else of the game could you beat without talking to anyone? Where do the other problems lie? This is where the real video ends and the begins. I enable God mode, to get to the Gek portion of the reactor chamber. I also released Fox as an easy way to kill some of the mutants in the area without explicitly cheating, which in retrospect was a stupid thing to do, considering what I did moments before that and what was coming. Once in the Garden of Eden Creation Kit dormitory, I paused all enemy AI to give myself the illusion of getting there with them dead, and attempted to retrieve the Gek without God mode enabled. I wasn't sure how much health I should have had. I used a command to check my current health, held my keyboard up to the screen, counted the number of keys my current health spanned, did a series of complex mathematical calculations to determine that my health should have been at around 200, set it to 200, and crawled to the Gek. That was also a complete waste of time, because your health has no bearing on how much radiation damage you can take. My speed caused me to hit deadly radiation poisoning by the time I was in the doorway, and I dropped dead before even touching the Gek. My next brilliant strategy was to use a dose of Rad-X. Giving myself the Pip-Boy didn't give me the ability to open my Pip-Boy and to use any of the drugs it acquired. Bethesda went to great lengths to keep children from being able to overdose in their games. Whatever, this idea is all a fever dream anyway. God mode enabled, pick up the Gek, escape. Easy peasy when you're a dirty cheater with a big nose. The next theoretical roadblock was the Enclave. If you get captured, you're forced to dialogue with Colonel Autumn before you can move freely around their base. Clearly, that wasn't an option. I avoided the Enclave abduction by clipping through a wall, which placed me just outside Fox's cell. Before making my way back through Murder Pass, I used the Resurrection command to bring the failed FEV experiment back to life. Then I killed him with a different command and crashed the game. Turns out that forcing life onto something that was never meant to be alive, then stripping that life away, is a way to collapse the universe in on itself. I avoided talking to McCready at the front gate by taking large steps to the left and avoiding his all-seeing gaze. You know what? None of this even matters anymore. I did a bunch of different shit but ended up at the Citadel because there was nowhere else to go. You can't trigger the endgame without escaping from the Enclave base. Giving the Gek to the Brotherhood of Steel wasn't an option, because it's not supposed to be able to happen. I have now thoroughly explored all possibilities for beating Fallout 3 without talking to anyone, and none of them work. But there is one last thing we can do. Something with guaranteed success. Through some combination of dialogue choices, you can beat Fallout 3 by talking to as few people as possible, and saying as few words as possible. I was voted as the quietest guy in my high school class. I was made for this. I was born again in a way I never saw coming, picked my special stats based around getting as many points into speech as possible, with the idea that passing speech checks would be the key to getting out of a conversation with as few words said by both parties as possible, and began my 10th birthday party. Normally, a modder will initiate dialogue as soon as you're given control of your character, but if you back away instantly, that won't happen. From there, you must talk to two people, the old woman and your father. After saying a total of 2 words to Old Lady Palmer, Butch will get up and try to bully you. If you're fancy with your movement, you can avoid him. This isn't easy. There are spots on the table that you can get stuck on, and you can't just run around both sets of tables, as a modder will tell you happy birthday if you get too close. There's a delicate dance that must be performed here, until such a time where Jonas ring-a-ding-dingsters your father, at which point you'll have to talk to him to get the door to the hallway opened. But you won't actually say any words to him. Beatrice will try to give you a stupid poem that she wrote. You'll avoid her, say 8 words to Jonas, 10 words to Dad, break the targets, kill the bug, get your photo taken, time will fly by, and you'll wake up in front of your father on the day of the GOAT exam. You can say all sorts of things to him, ask him a couple questions, or you can just say 2 words. Snag the medicine bobblehead, and begin your great escape. For all intents and purposes, I followed the same path as you would in a Fallout 3 speedrun. At this point, the game considers you an adult, so you can clip through the wall, the escape quest will trigger, and you can leave the vault without saying another word. At the door, I chose small guns, speech, and medicine as my tag skills, dumped all points into speech after leveling up outside, looted the hollowed out rock near Megaton, and headed for Little Lamplight. Not long after leaving the vault, I killed a scavenger and got a serious upgrade to my arsenal of weapons. Then another upgrade, after I ended a handful of raiders with a missile launcher I'd gotten from the scavenger. I took out Doc Huff, his caravan guard, and the Pack Brahmin as well. Inside the lamplight, I did what Baby Me did back in the day to bypass McCready, glitched myself through the gate at Murder Pass, and entered Vault 87 proper. I'd also assigned weapons, stim packs, and Rad-X to every available hotkey, as the problem of not being able to use my Pip-Boy reared its head again. I freed Fox for the same reason I did last time, to take out some of the mutants attacking me, picked up the Gek, and got abducted by the Enclave. There was no way around that. A series of events must unfold in Raven Rock to place the game in a state where it's able to be beaten. I ran through various dialogue options with Autumn until I found a set of choices where I said the fewest number of words possible, 17. There are actually 2 paths to get this interaction over with in 17 words, not that it matters. The only guy you might have trouble with is the Enclave officer, hiding outside your holding cell. He'll look the other way if you toss a live grenade his way. President Eden takes an unfortunate 49 words to end his dialogue. You're basically just saying you'll consider what he says and you'll be on your way. Convincing him to blow himself up is the preferred option from a gameplay perspective, but it's too costly from a dictionary standpoint. Escaping Raven Rock is combat, that you can do if you want. I just ignored everyone, left, fast traveled back to Vault 101, and headed for the Jefferson Memorial. The last time I came this way, I passed by an opportunity to end a certain someone. This time, from the safety of a rock, I fired a warning shot into Grandma Sparkles. She spasmed like crazy, and the game crashed. That is nothing if not predictable. There's nobody you're required to talk to on the road to the Jefferson Memorial. Inside, I clipped myself into the purifier and realized that I had to talk to Autumn again to set this up properly. Simply knocking out his skin isn't enough to do it. The quickest path to salvation is giving up on diplomacy by uttering the last 6 words of your life, activating Project Purity, and that's that. I could not beat Fallout 3 without talking to anyone, but I did beat it by saying only 94 words to other characters in the game. God, this video sucked. Fallout 3 has quite a few locations to discover and explore, but most of them are neck deep in the ruins of Washington, D.C., so you don't get a good taste of nature. Luckily, there's a place that was never touched by Nuclear Armageddon. Can you beat Fallout 3's Point Lookout DLC without taking any damage? The setup for these Fallout 3 DLC videos are all the same. Be born, pick skills, escape the vault, blah blah blah, who cares? Rather than going through all that, I loaded a save from early on in my The Pit No Damage Run playthrough. I'd be doing all the same stuff anyway. I've already proven that I can make it to Megaton and just about any location on the map with limited supplies without taking any damage. Then I returned to Megaton and got mauled to death by a filthy mongrel because I'd set my max health to 1 so that any damage of any kind kills me. From there, I began heading deep into the depths of the southern region of the Capital Wasteland. My destination is the Riverboat Landing, to take me away to the land of magic and incest. On my journey there, I stopped by some Talon Company building and died. With 1 down, I took his weapons, snagged a stealth boy, killed his brother, found even more trash in a bedbox, and went about my business of being lit on fire and watching a group of ghouls harass the reason for that drive slow sign at the end of the block. Some fool with a missile launcher used the power of damage to damage me. I broke both his hands with a bullet as recompense for his sins, took his stuff for myself. Brian Wilkes found himself a new friend that's actually alive. I spontaneously combusted and was told by Big Head about a special soda. He had a dog meat with him, so I killed them both, robbed his corpse, got into a scuffle with some nearby Neanderthals, and my past came back to haunt me. The missile-launching ghosts of past massacres are on the scene and are not happy that I exist. I tried quite a few times to kill them. The riverboat was just down the road, and I already had plenty of supplies, so I ignored them, met Catherine, discovered the ferryman, bought a ticket to ride, sold my garbage, and took my place on the high seas. At long last, we made it to the mesmerizing shores of Point Lookout, where the grass is green and the air is even greener. Toby welcomed me to the island and told me about the spooky mansion. You can tell this is a good DLC because there's a Ferris wheel in it. But, like other DLCs, Point Lookout has its fair share of new creatures in the form of backwoods knuckleheads who love their father like a brother loves their mother's sister. After my first encounter with the West Virginian common folk, I found the mansion and entered it in search of something to do. Inside, I was given the order by Desmond to help him defend his mansion, and was also given free rein to take any supplies I wanted. This beautiful mustachioed corpse effectively had an armory where his kitchen should be, and I took advantage of that in more ways than you can imagine. Let's just say that his toaster should be getting a visit from the coat hanger fairy in a few months, if you know what I mean. The next period of time consisted of the great process of engaging in combat for a period of time. Usually, you'd want to avoid multiple close quarters encounters with loud foes and firearms all over the place. All the instances of non-stealthy fighting present numerous opportunities for your fragile frame to be slammed to death by a tribal that doesn't understand how they just forfeited their life with that little mistake. Other tribals prefer the art of ranged combat through the use of firearms. Most, however, are of the semi-automatic variety. Several dead bodies later, I discovered the raw majesty of wooden boards that hover in the air like they're in Pixar Presents World War II villain zombies, and the joy that comes from blowing the head off a tribal who just busted a hole in the wall with their body. I accidentally teabagged a child's learning cube before getting into a lengthy confrontation with even more tribals. The annoying part was that I could see them on my compass, but I couldn't reach them with a grenade ricocheted off the wall. I eventually resorted to using mines to destroy their lives with the element of surprise. For a while, this presented the classic Call of Duty gameplay we've all come to know and love, with 1v1 gameplay encounters won with nothing but your reflexes and your connection to the server. Before long, I learned that it was Karen Dog's birthday, and even worse, the tribals are breaking their way into the main room of the mansion. They were destroyed both physically and emotionally. The mental toll of what I'd just done turned my legs to noodles, causing the floor to buckle underneath my slimy legs, allowing my entire body to plummet several stories down into the basement with the mannequins and no way out. The tribals, who'd heard my manly screams as I plummeted towards my demise, came to check on me and finish the job gravity couldn't. Fresh out of the basement, I found myself in an even more disheveled portion of the mansion, filled with boarded up windows and holes in the floor that more than once saw witness to my failed attempt to kill myself with a grenade. I used a door to brute force the tribals into activating my trap card so I could kill them while they were busy fumbling around with a worthless animation. Back upstairs, I started to think that this was all there was to this DLC. Maybe the rest of the island was a mirage, and all that come to the island find themselves in the mansion sooner or later. The only time I saw anyone breaking into a room was when they were already in the mansion. Nobody came in from the outside. Some time ago, I blew up something in a room that was capable of exploding, then did something similar to another thing on the east side of the building. This blocked off the flanking positions of the tribals, ensuring that their only route to Desmond and I was head-on. Now you'd think that with a missile launcher, all you'd have to do was sit in a corner and shoot missiles at any door that opens, instantly killing all those who thought that door was opening to the rest of their lives. One was even frozen in fear at the prospect of walking through the door to her death, so I brought the death to her. More floating boards appeared several minutes into the tribal onslaught. They block your path, can stop bullets, and annoy me with their existence, almost as much as Desmond was annoyed at my existence. He's not a nice man. He's actually kind of a cunt. He wanted me to get my hands dirty, and he didn't seem interested in my idea of dirtying my hands with whatever blood was left in his head. Instead, he sent me off to become a tribal. At this point, I was getting deja vu from another Fallout DLC. Far Harbor, fend off an attack, talk to a guy, go find a tribal cult and join their ranks, and a swampy mountainous area. Real peculiar. As I explored Point Lookout a bit more, the plants I stuffed into my pockets knocked my BMI back up into the obese category for the first time in years. I found, observed, and murdered a couple vicious dogs. Once their lives ended, I arrived at the church, borrowed some railroad spikes, stood at the threshold of transcendence, and was sent to complete the ritual of the Mother Seed. It's like a giant cactus covered in glitter or something. All I knew about, and my only care in the world, was getting one of those special seeds and being exploded next to a car. The seed was on the other side of the area, through the river and into the woods, past the house of Scrapper Festus and Mr. Underbite. The Scrappers aren't too noteworthy. If we're being honest with ourselves, they're basically just tougher raiders with a different coat of paint. The swamp itself was fairly spooky, made more spooky by the overall wearing hunchbacks with a propensity for physical violence. The game conveniently crashed right when I was about to fucking destroy them both. Back in the game, I continued to wander through the darkness in search of seeds, said the appropriate phrase upon seeing a creeper, battled a radioactive fly who'd mastered the art of moving side to side, found some blood, and entered the hidden bug cavern. It was exceptionally dark, but braving the frightening cave was worth it, as the sacred bog was just beyond the light at the end of the tunnel. The bog was as sacred as it was wet. All the irradiated water filled my mind with worry and my boots with liquid. Mirelurks and swamp lurks littered the area. The swampy queen proved a formidable foe when she laughed off my double-barrel shot to the face, prompting me to flee for my life and avoid most creatures living deeper in the bog. It didn't take long for me to find the fungus king, inhale a swarm of its spores, collapse on the ground, and get beaten to death by a fish. The unconsciousness lasted about 10 seconds, I think. Because of how difficult it is to keep track of time when you're not awake, I cannot confirm that it was only 10 seconds. Upon waking up, both my eyes had been coated in melted blue plastic, similar to what occurred in the Far Harbor DLC. I didn't backtrack through the bog. Seemed like it would have taken some effort. I was told by the game to return to the church. Obviously, I didn't do that. I quick loaded myself through the Earth's crust and took a leisurely stroll into the infinite remainder of the world. Part of me was expecting, hoping even, that I would run many miles and turn around and be like one social distance away from the sacred bog. That didn't happen. After I mutilated a couple bugs, I fast-traveled back to the Ark and Dove Cathedral to take the next step towards sneaking my way into heaven. Jimson talked of the ritual like it was some out-of-body experience. None of that mattered because the tribal let me into the church. I introduced myself to Woodrose, then Nadine, who was the bitch I came here to find. She explained that some tree man cut my skull open in the 10 seconds I was unconscious in the woods. Then she said that she joined the cult to make the big bucks, and that the assault on the mansion was Jackson's idea. I had no idea who that was, or if they like jazz. From there, I returned to Desmond in the mansion to bask in the warmth of his eternal disappointment in me for doing just as he asked. I tried to blow off one of his legs and kill his pets, but all three are essential and can't die because Bethesda hates fun. Desi sent me to the northeast part of Point Lookout to get more information from the tribal leader. The cemetery I almost entered predictably had an assortment of undead friends in it. The cliff I totally didn't accidentally survive falling down led me to the Sea Cave, home of the Sea Man himself. Because the plot had to be advanced, Jackson spoke of killing Desmond right when I was within earshot. Jackson felt up a great potential deep inside me and granted me permission to speak to the Great Transparent One, known to all except himself as the Master. He's a holographic projection of a brain that is just as nice to me as Desmond. The brain wanted me to kill Desmond, who appears to be the reason why the brain is a brain and not a person. My master called on me to return to the Calvé mansion once more to carry out his vision. After a single warning shot, I engaged in idle conversation with the bone sack. Turns out the blue guy on the table in the cave was at one point in time Professor Calvert, a member of the Calvert family from whom the mansion gets its name. Desmond got a bit snooty. I gave him an empty threat, since I still couldn't kill him, and he sent me to stuff a box in a worm's hole. I put the square thing on the big spinning thing and we all live happily ever after, except for the part where an army of inbred tribals are sent to make me suffer. Attempting to flee from the Ferris wheel while the tribals were in the area always ended with my death. I picked off a few with a missile launcher I'd retrieved from my special pocket, died, bobbed and weaved in the carnival, died a couple more times, and decided to handle this the correct way. Cosplay as the very thing I'm trying to kill by becoming translucent, then running away. Yeah, the brain was not thrilled with my actions. I figured that out when he blew up the mansion. Somehow the blast was powerful enough to fling my body backwards, yet didn't damage me in any way. I'd forgotten there were dogs in the house. Their deaths were the one good thing to come out of this so far. The puppies exploding was what pushed Desmond over the edge, and with the stench of vengeance in the air, I followed my undead buddy to the lighthouse where the brain was broadcasting from. After making it to the lighthouse, Desmond and I entered the underground lab to end it all together, hand in hand. Turrets hiding in the dark corners of the room woke up and killed me more than once. Desmond did a lot of the shooting while I perused the dormitories for trash. Most of what the brain sent our way were robots, with the occasional turret mounted on the ceiling. And at long last, we found the brain. I expected that the Protectrons would wake up after discussions of peace between Desmond and the other guy went sideways, which was why I killed them all while they slept like a good legal guardian. Then came the final decision, one last chance to pick my side. Do I kill Desmond or kill the brain? First, I sided with the floaty guy and killed Desmond. The brain rewarded me with death, but because I prematurely killed the robots, nothing happened. I blasted apart the brain's chamber, took a quick look through my goodie bag, and was a little let down that was it. So I went back and sided with Desmond instead to see what the other ending was. Apparently, he's such a failure of a person that he'd been battling the professor for over 200 years. I accepted my reward. Desmond explained that the entire thing was a game. He was moving on to destroy his next rival. To prevent that, I used the microwave emitter I'd gotten as a thank you to turn him into a puddle of dead body on the ground, and I beat Fallout 3's Point Lookout DLC without taking any damage. There's a Fallout game that is considered by many to be one of the worst games of all time, but calling it bad is an insult to games that are truly awful, like Hotel Mario or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. Can you beat Fallout Brotherhood of Steel without wanting to die? The opening cinematic, aside from the metal music playing in place of the 1950s music the franchise is known for, actually does a pretty solid job of setting the stage for a Fallout game. Then come the decisions, which difficulty to play on and which character to play as. I chose the easiest option to wake up from this nightmare as quickly as possible, and went with Cyrus as my character because he seemed like the one who would be able to take the most damage. The backstory is vague at best. You're a Brotherhood initiate who's looking for missing paladins, and that's it. It was abundantly clear what audience this game was catering to when the leader of the Raiders was a woman in heels wearing next to nothing and dual-wielding pistols. After talking to a nearby entertainer and asking her about men in big metal armor, I went inside a bar to investigate. Here, I got into combat for the first time. There's actually a lot of thought that goes into combat. You can punch people, or you can punch people. Yeah, that's about it. You literally have one form of attack, the X button. There's no block, no light attack, no heavy attack, just attack. You have a chance at landing a critical shot that does more damage, and you can use different weapons, but that's it. Brotherhood of Steel is a 15-year-old game, but come on, this is garbage by any standard. Once the Raiders were defeated, I informed Armpit, and he told me to talk to the mayor. I also leveled up. Believe it or not, there is some customization available in this game. There are skills that are admittedly pretty generic across the board, but it's better than nothing. What's truly incredible is that this game has more armor customization than Fallout 3. The slots are head, body, gloves, and boots. In Fallout 3, you've got body armor, headwear, and glasses. I also found out, before leaving the bar, that I did have 2 weapons available from the start, iron gloves and a homemade pistol. Jesse, the one-armed merchants, got melee weapons, firearms, and armor for sale. It took me a while to find Richard and saw that the game really takes advantage of its M rating. To get information from Richard, I would have to go and clear out a warehouse for him on the other side of town. Inside the warehouse are 25 rad scorpions to destroy. I tried using my pistol on them, but it really sucks. The damage is ridiculously low, and unless you're locked onto a single target, you have next to no chance of hitting anything. I fought my way through some of the rad scorpions, picked up some of their tails, punched a few giant rats to death, and the monotony of this game's combat really started to become apparent. There's also a whining dog that would not shut up. It was so frustrating. The other thing that's frustrating, because I'm a pussy that requires handholding, is that the game doesn't tell you where the enemies are. That's fine on its own. You explore a level and take out all the enemies you find, which became significantly easier once I found the spiked baseball bat. It becomes a problem when you get down to a few enemies left. You find out that there are 2 rad scorpions left, and you have no idea where they are. Your only option is to mindlessly run around the level until you find the 1 rad scorpion left. I'm not asking the game to tell you where every single rad scorpion is, but by the time you're down to the last few rad scorpions, you've done most of the work. Just mark them on the map. Then I entered the warehouse auxiliary storage, where there are 23 more rad scorpions to kill. I thought it was just the 25 in that one area. Nope. I'm gonna go ahead and spoil the surprise by telling you that there's a third area with even more fucking scorpions. This game is just so unrelentingly horrible. See, what you're watching now is the core of the game. This is it. This is all there is. I spent close to an hour clearing out all the rad roaches, scorpions, whatever. Imagine you're a Fallout fan from the early 2000s. You rent this game from Blockbuster, and you spend an hour walking up to rad roaches and pressing X. The inherent problem is how dull combat is. You don't get new abilities as you level up and get deeper into the game. It's the same throughout the entire playthrough. When you're playing an action role-playing game, you expect the action to be fun, but it's not. At one point, I blew up a barrel just so there was something else to look at. Once most of the rad scorpions were dead, I backtracked through all 3 areas, clearing out the occasional rat as I came across it, until I returned to the entrance, where a giant stone block that previously blocked off a new room has now been moved. Inside that room is a giant rad scorpion, the first boss. I love the text that appears just before you face the giant rad scorpion. But that's not enough to make this fight interesting. The first minute or 2 were spent blasting away at its claws, so I could do melee attacks without it blocking the damage. When that predictably didn't work at all, I spammed stim packs and used my combat knife to slice them into oblivion. I ran for a while, taking a shot or 2 before it caught up to me and did big damage. Then it dawned on me that I had enough stim packs to spare, that I could just stand in place and keep firing until it died. And there was still 1 rad scorpion left. Somewhere in one of the 3 areas I just spent 1 hour clearing out is a single remaining rad scorpion. This game, I hate it so much. God saw my struggles and helped me out. It took only 10 minutes to find that scorpion, and with the warehouse finally cleared out, I returned to the mayor. He pointed me towards the crater at the edge of town. I sold some gear to Jesse and entered the crater. The one good thing I'll say about the crater is that it does feel like it fits into a world where a nuclear war took place some 200 years ago. Giant holes in the ground, where death is all but certain, litter the landscape. Puddles of water that probably should be irradiated, and destroyed buildings with no roof. That's where the good ends though. There are these little beetle things that are sometimes annoying to fight. Not because they're tough, they're not. They take a few hits to die and that's it. But because hit detection sucks. I spent several more minutes than I would have liked exploring the area, killing bugs, collecting items, and trying to figure out where my objective was, until I found the entrance to the crater lower level. Once again, I was a little impressed with the overall feeling of the area. It really did seem like this crater was a breeding ground for all sorts of irradiated creatures. A little ways into the crater, I realized I had a torch that was stupid effective against the beetles and rad scorpions. And if you're wondering how radiation works, it just does damage over time. Sorta like Fallout 4, but sorta not at all, really. After pushing my way through all the creatures, I entered the crater pit, where not only did the mayor surprise nobody by being the bad guy, he somehow made it down there before I did. The mayor, Richard, is the second boss in this game, and it was here I died for the first time. His unique offensive ability is that he throws explosives that detonate after a few seconds and do a large amount of damage. He's one of those bosses that has a high attack power but low health. He exploded, as one does, and his death set off a chain reaction that triggered the collapse of the entire crater. You have to escape before the cave collapses all around you. I put an exclamation point there, but it really doesn't deserve it. You just have to run back to town. There's no timer or anything. Sometimes the screen shakes, rocks fall, and there are raiders now. Nothing crazy. Back in town, the raider matron had her goon's light armpit on fire. Then he died. The raiders have begun destroying the town. And guess what? You have to clear them all out before you can do anything. 3 areas, 60 plus raiders to kill, same shit as the warehouse. I bought a sledgehammer from Jesse before making my way into the other areas. It's better than the torch, but it doesn't make this any more interesting. Everything I've said about combat applies here. There's nothing fun about it. There are flame raiders that explode when they die, so ranged attacks are advisable, but they're basically the same thing as the irradiated rad scorpions. If anything, this is worse. I spent more time looking for raiders than I did killing them. Few things in life are more annoying than seeing one raider remains and having no idea where it could possibly be. I spent a solid 10 minutes looking for the last raider before I found it. The doctor was sort of impressed, and guess what? I get to defeat more raiders. Jesse told me that they're all camped out at the old mill at the edge of town. He handed me a key to get through the secret exit in the warehouse. I upgraded my armor and went to take on more raiders. They're tougher and do more damage than the ones I fought a few minutes ago, and there are mines on the ground that are annoying and can't be destroyed. Oh, and I swapped out the sledgehammer for a cleaver. Who cares? I have a cleaver now. Speaking of now, it's a good time to point out something about this run. There have been times where challenges have been put on hold for a few months to allow me to regain my sanity, but this one is different. I started it way back in the long ago, in September of 2019, and came back to it in July of 2020. So, in the interest of keeping my brain on the inside of my head and not all over the wall, I'm gonna quickly skim through the rest of what I did in September. I killed more raiders in what I can only assume was the lumber yard. There you go, you're caught up. Jesse let me know that I had to fumble with the machinery if I wanted to reach the raider matron, and I entered the mill storage area ready to kick some ass and cry for being back in this nightmare of a game. The first thing I did was check the controls to make sure I knew what I was doing. Apparently there's a special move that didn't work for me once ever. I also messed with the graphics to make it look better again. The sledgehammer is fairly solid against most of these clowns. It takes them down in a few hits, assuming you actually connect with their body and they don't back away as you swing. After leveling up again and dumping the points into the special attack just to see if it did anything, I pressed deeper into the mill while wandering around with no real idea of where to go. That's a common theme with this game, being lost. If you're close to the objective, a yellow cross will flash on the minimap, but it could really do with a Titanfall 2 system where you can always see where you're supposed to go, if only so you don't have to spend more time playing this game than you already have to. Tougher foes were in the next room, as well as a series of locked doors. The dual-wielding maniacs did solid damage against me. I ran through the Electro Dome, died to the Shocker, realized I hadn't saved since the last time I saved due to a limited number of save slots, and was more lost than ever. It seemed the door I was supposed to go through was locked, and my mind wasn't powerful enough to figure out what to do. You might have noticed that there are progress saving machines every 11 inches. This is because the developers knew you'd need to save often. You wouldn't want to play this game for more than a few minutes at a time. This would be a great mobile game in that regard. God, imagine if the first console port of a Fallout game to a phone was fucking Brotherhood of Steel. At some point while I was inside, I nuked a reactor, which unlocked the path to the Raider Mother. Went back outside to barter with Jesse, which was where I learned I had more actual armor that I hadn't been using for some reason, most likely my own ineptitude. Before an eternity had passed, I found myself in the lair of the lady who was conversating with what appeared to be a super mutant. Then he left, and I was left with her. For the leader of a raider group, she was awfully forthcoming with information I was after. Then I had to kill her. I used what's commonly referred to in the Fallout Brotherhood of Steel community as the Wombo Combo, to annihilate her with one part toxic gas grenades and another part standing in place with a submachine gun and pressing the fire button while spamming the stim pack button until she died. Back in town, my ignorance got the better of me when I hoped that this would be the end of the game. Oh no, not even close. I met up with some sort of lonesome wanderer to whom I returned a Vault 13 flask I'd found. A smart man would have put 1 and 2 together to make 2 and realized that he was the Vault Dweller from the original Fallout, or he's supposed to be. He learned me about a city of ghouls called Los. Who cares? I had a short seizure, watched the giant monster man instill terror in lesser beings, and began asking around town about a group of Brotherhood paladins. The first guy was Harold, likely the same Harold living in eternal anguish in Fallout 3. Apparently he slipped Ruby, the town whore, a scab, if you know what I mean. Something of his detached while he was inside her. That must have been an interesting experience, one I'd like to experience for myself one day. I kept asking around, sold some items to a ghoul to buy a pair of electro gloves, and entered the arena to score some easy caps. You get 100, then 200, then 300, etc., whatever. But it was more trouble than it was worth, so I headed to the docks, via the East Bridge, to continue my search for the Paladins. Here, ghouls are introduced as an enemy, and they're not much different from raiders, aside from a different appearance, different death sounds, different weapons, and attacking en masse. The power fists could dispatch of them in 2 to 3 punches, so they were a non-issue for the most part. I got lost again trying to figure out where to go. You're supposed to jump on pipes to traverse to other parts of the map. Things got harder when the big green ghouls appeared closer to the docks. Maybe they're supposed to be glowing ones. Maybe not. I really don't care. They, along with the other ghouls in this area, tested my resolve like no other group of enemies did. After saving the points of the last 2 level ups, I could finally summon a loyal animal companion to fight by my side. The one and only Dogmeat joined the party, and that was a lie. He was nowhere to be seen. This game sucks. Once I reached yet another save post, the dog appeared. He can die over and over again, but will respawn when you pass by a save point. More minutes of fighting later, and after entering an area filled with more ghouls, I died, lost some progress, decided to ignore most of the enemies in my way, entered what I thought was the right area. It wasn't, so I kept fighting as best I could, using the majority of my stim packs in the process. In yet another new area, I found the cousin of the ghoul merchant from earlier, sold a few weapons I didn't need, and made an important decision. The only way I'd get through this was with either about 15,000 caps worth of stim packs or a lot of alcohol. And the last time I drank a lot, I got into a shouting match with my air conditioner, so that was out of the question. The audio of that shouting match is in the Mitten Squad Discord server's Good Noodle board, if you want to hear it. With hundreds of stim packs in my pocket, I continued my journey in hell by freeing groups of prisoners who were stuck in hell with me. Well, I freed like half of them. I lost interest in their well-being when I couldn't find the rest of the keys to the gates. Then, it happened. I found Professor Rhombus, the King of Shapes, being tortured by the Ghoul Man, who I then had to kill. I used the same tactic on the equally as attractive woman I faced a little while ago. Stand in place with thousands of bullets until he died. Then I had to escort Rhombus to where he hid the key to the secret entrance to something. And you're not gonna believe this, Brotherhood of Steel actually managed to do something better than other games. Rhombus ran just as fast as I did. It was amazing. Then a suicide ghoul exploded him. He got back up and was just fine. Then it got me real good, which ended my life, causing me to have to do the entire escort thing again, because I hadn't saved recently. With the key in my possession, I entered the Vault Tech warehouse storage in search of the secret vault. More ghouls and shit were inside, nothing particularly noteworthy to be honest. I got a monster ripper though, that was kinda cool. A two-handed ripper seemed like a pretty solid Fallout weapon. I could see it being in other games in the future. There were also some super mutants inside, which were negated by the monster ripper. It wasn't anything crazy or interesting or fun. However, there was another boss fight, in the form of a series of automated turrets that erupted from the ground like possessed jack-o'-lanterns to beat me up with their bullets. Luckily for me, I still had several hundred stim packs, so there wasn't any reason to die. Then came Chapter 3. That's right. We're only 2/3 of the way through this. Sort of. You'll see what I mean later. My task inside the vault was to learn of the mutant leader's plans. I don't even know what to say about this. If you find radioactive fire hose urination funny, you'll like this game. A horde of spider things were lurking inside, and I'll say maybe one more good thing about this game. It sets the scene of super mutants having taken over a vault pretty well. There's blood and stuff, and I'm unhappy. It's a great time. But just when you think the game can't get any worse, it does. There are puzzles, very, very light puzzle elements, like you have to move these shelves out of the way using a console. Eventually I got the pathways cleared, rampaged through a vault corridor filled with more mutants, played as a little scooter, died as a Wally, and found Addis, the leader of the mutants, king of the vault, the lion in a field of hamsters or something. He was the toughest boss so far. I actually had to put some effort into beating him, but I still had several hundred stim packs. Even if he was an immortal god from another dimension, I could have beaten him with the power of time and American ingenuity. At long last, Addis fell before me. I beat the final boss, and the game is over. No, it's not. This does not end. The torment is forever. He cut off my arm, dropped me in a hole. Some whore woke me up from my attempt at dying. I followed her through the vault ruins on the way to the gardens, and realized something else I like about this game. The vault really does feel massive, like it could be home to thousands of people. I got a replacement arm that looked just like my old one, couldn't be a robotic arm, that would have required effort, and was off to escort a vault technician through a robot-infested sub-basement. Guess what? This, surprisingly, was actually horrible. The techno loser can't defend himself, there are robots everywhere, you've got to go through these side passages to deactivate laser barriers, leaving him standing there while defenseless the entire time. The one good thing is that if he dies, another takes his place, but then you have to run all the way back to the start of the level to pick him up. then escort him back through the rest of the level. He activates the power and sends you to connect 2 circuit breakers. More robots and such, not really anything difficult or exciting. But then, it gets worse. Worse than ever. Worse than anything in this game so far. There are these stupid fucking lasers blocking a bunch of different paths, along with consoles used to turn certain lasers on and off. For example, and I'm just making up this example, console 1 turns on laser 2 and 3, but turns off laser 4. Then console 2 turns on laser 5, but turns off 2. It's more strategic shit that someone with a functioning brain could probably figure out. But the thing is, my air conditioner was still unusable. It was like 94 degrees outside, and the window unit I was given was in another room, because it was missing a piece, so I had to seal the gap with cardboard and tape. I was in no mood for anything that required effort on my part. That being said, I got through it with some trial and error. The vents were opened, allowing the vault dwellers to escape. There was another boss fight against these disgustingly inaccurate Nightkin that pushed my poor little iMac to its limits, and I assumed the end was near. The dwellers could escape, as could I. Again, no. I need a key card to progress, and where is that card? Why, it's back in the vault ruins. I wandered through back when I was missing an arm, of course. What's down there? Death Claws, which were the strongest and most annoying non-boss enemy in the game up to that point. And once more, I got lost. I had no idea where to go or what to do. The Death Claws kept respawning and took a fuck ton of time and effort to kill. Hopelessly lost, sweating profusely, and tired of this game, I called it quits. Even without a challenge, this game was so bad that it broke me. Not only could I not beat Fallout Brotherhood of Steel without wanting to die, I couldn't even beat it at all. And I've never been more satisfied with failure in my life. There are a lot of perks in Fallout 3. The majority of them just provide small bonuses to various skills. Plus 5 to repair and medicine, plus 15 to barter, plus 10 to speech, that sort of thing. But there's one perk that actually gives you a new way to attack enemies. Can you beat Fallout 3 as a nuclear anomaly? Probably not. Nuclear Anomaly is a perk you can't get until you reach level 30, which also happens to be the max level in Fallout 3, even with all DLCs installed. In this challenge, the only way to attack an enemy is with that perk. So could you somehow reach level 30 in Fallout 3 without attacking anything? I highly doubt it, since there are no XP farm exploits, if you want to call them that, like there are in Fallout 4, at least not that I'm aware of. Which means there are 2 ways for me to get this perk, and both involve cheating. But we'll get to that in a bit. Inside Vault 101, I named myself Atom Bomb and started assigning special points. I drained Strength, Charisma, and Intelligence because they had no value to me, maxed out Perception and Endurance to be able to take a couple important perks, and put the rest in Agility and Luck. Looking back, Luck was probably a waste. I think I would have been better off putting those points into Strength. The bonus to all skills is negligible, and I have a hard time believing that critical damage applies to the Walking Nagasaki perk. I did kill the roach during my 10th birthday party, only so that I wouldn't have to play the game as a baby or as a child. Escaped the vault without attacking anything, as I've done many times, and stepped outside, ready to leave the world of mortals behind and take my place among the stars. I used the Reward XP command to give myself enough experience points to get me to level 30, and began the process of assigning skill points and picking skills. In an effort to not become too overpowered, because I'd be at level 30 and would have a bunch of perks by the time this was over, I spread out my skill points evenly amongst all skills as I leveled up. I think this is a fair way to balance things out. Almost half the skills, big guns, energy weapons, explosives, melee weapons, small guns, and unarmed, are worthless since I can't use any of those weapons. Doing it this way kept me from maxing out only the skills I'd be using, like medicine or repair. I'm not going to go through all the perks I picked, there isn't time to talk about 30 different perks. The big ones were Explorer, which marked all locations on my map, Rad Tolerance to slap minor radiation poisoning back to where it belonged, Rad Absorption to turn my sweat into a cool neon green color, Devil's Highway to set my karma to very evil, Toughness, which was a dumb move on my part, No Weaknesses to raise all special stats lower than 5 up to 5, that's a good one, and Nuclear Anomaly. With this perk, anytime your health is below 20%, you erupt into a devastating nuclear explosion, causing big damage to everyone and everything near you, including your armor and your limbs. With just about every skill at 70, and the power to channel a nuclear detonation inside me, I set off into the capital wasteland, looking for people to annihilate. My first stop was Silver out in an abandoned house. Because I couldn't directly attack her to trick her into activating my trap card, I had to steal worthless objects from her. It was funny to watch her put bullet after bullet into my sternum. She thought she could kill me. After spending more time than you'd think being filled with lead and taunting her with coffee cups, my health got below 20% and nothing happened. You want to know why? I f***ed up. I read when your health is below 20 as when your health is below 20%. This is probably why I had to take those special reading classes in kindergarten. So, with 620 hit points, I've got to get down to a single sliver of health before I detonate. And the wacky part is that my eruption can actually kill me, which seemed counterintuitive and weird. Turning my legs into the remnants of a roadkill squirrel dropped into a high-powered blender was expected, but death was not. Unfazed by my own demise, I entered Megaton and was a righteous prick to Moira. My rudeness towards her pissed her off, which then pissed me off even more than she was, prompting me to come to the realization that everyone in town had to go. I stole the eraser off a pencil and everyone lost their mind. Bullets were flying, my blood was all over the place, explosions happened many times. It was wonderful. I didn't even have to fight back. In their attempts to kill me, they made me more powerful than they could ever imagine. Now, there are a couple unique quirks and features that affect this perk, because it is, after all, a Bethesda game. The good thing is that it restores health when you do the big boom. That's useful because you can only detonate once every 10 seconds. With enough health, that gives you enough time to run out the clock and get ready to cosplay as a mushroom cloud. And the explosion itself is pretty large. I've seen people say it's a worthless perk, but that's simply not true. If nothing else, having it as a failsafe that is automatically activated when your health is low enough makes it worth having. The downside is that it sometimes doesn't work. The explosion happens, but the people around you are not damaged by it in any way. My guess is that it's because this perk is kind of like Euclid's Sea Finder from New Vegas. It's not meant to be used as frequently as I was using it. Later in the playthrough, I figured out that quick saving and quick loading before you destroy everything can sometimes fix it, but other times it doesn't. The last thing, as I mentioned not long ago, is that depending on the difficulty, the blast can kill you. So you've got to be careful about what difficulty you choose to play on. With most of the people in the town dead, or wishing they were, I spoke to Burke, rigged the bomb to see my big brother in action later in life, tried to rob Crow outside of Megaton to devastate the outside as I did the inside, but nobody was brave enough to face a walking nuclear warhead in open combat. The metal lad seemed ready for it, but he was too weak. I didn't want to take advantage of something that wasn't even alive in the first place. A Yao Guai though, oh yeah, I'm all about it. The big beaver faced his end in style, even doing a somersault into the afterlife. I played with a little doggy too. It used the flesh on my forearm as a chew toy. I gave it a bop on the snout with a nuclear newspaper to let it know that kind of thing isn't allowed in the Mitten Squad household, and went shopping for more dead bodies. They weren't in stock, but I know a guy who knows a guy who could help me out. Both of those guys and me. What surprised me was that I actually managed to die a few times while dealing with the raiders, most likely because 20 health isn't really all that much. If someone has a powerful gun like a combat shotgun, it's fairly likely that they'll take you from 23 to 0 before you can say Hiroshima. Having clipped the right coupons to get a 3-for-1 special, I spent, 5 minutes putting all the shopping carts back where they belong. Then I thought a grenade would send them... Vibrating phone threw me off. Piece of shit. What was I even saying? Then, I thought a grenade would send them all flying, but that didn't happen. Let down, and unable to parkour on a flaming car, I continued southeast towards you-know-who. She may be powerful, but even she cannot overcome the power of the atom. I reached my hand up in there and grabbed some goodies. She caught me, of course. How could she not? I've got fingernails like razor blades, and I unfortunately failed at making her mad enough to attack me. It's like she knew what I was doing. I even tried throwing one of her buckets inside her shack to really turn her tumbleweed into a tornado, but that didn't work. Then, needing her to be dead already, I allowed myself to hit her one time with my hands. That fucking cunt ran into the sea. She's as smart as she is stupid. She knew the ocean was the one place I couldn't get her. Maybe I kinda forgot that drowning hurts, and stood on the pier instead of breathing in the water to drain my health enough to explode while submerged in water. The curse of Grandma Sparkle, for the first time in recorded history, did not plague me, but only because I couldn't kill her. To make up for that, I broke both my legs by accidentally jumping off a bridge on purpose and getting into a scuffle with a group of raiders camped out under that bridge. One of the trolls thought he got me because he had the high ground. I'd make another Star Wars reference, but the only one I've seen all the way through is Solo. After discovering the Citadel, I crossed the river to the Jefferson Memorial, where centaurs and super mutants littered the landscape and were eager to meet their maker. The first blast got him good. The horse dog tentacle monster man and his owner died, but the others were not amused by my little magic trick. They didn't take damage. However, because my health was partially restored after each explosion, I could just stand there and take the punishment until it happened again. Didn't work the second time either, so I entered the memorial to cause great damage to the structure of the building as well as those inside. The perk is so powerful that even a super mutant master can be brought to justice with just a singular use of it. One of the more annoying parts of using this perk is how long it can take the bad guys to suck your hit points away with their fancy guns and big sticks. You want to find the right middle ground in terms of difficulty where the nuke doesn't kill you, but the attacks from the attackers aren't so powerful that they'll kill you before the explosion can happen either. I found that to be easy or normal, depending on the instance. As I was being stricken down by the bullies in the basement, something caught my eye. The super mutant. He looked different from the others, and I couldn't figure out why. I learned later that it's because they're the overlord variety of mutant, and are the toughest super mutants excluding the behemoth. He was tricky to take down, due to his toughness, and because of the damage thing I mentioned earlier. It took 3 nuclear anomaly explosions to bring him down. Compared to him, none of the others inside were much of a threat. The Jefferson building was cleared out, as were the mutants on the outside, and I set my sights on Smith Casey's garage. A couple more explosions happened on the way out there. A bee wasn't very interested in my idea of being tag teamed by itself and a dog, so it killed the dog before I could. I killed it, blew up a mole rat with my body, and watched as a pair of albino rad scorpions made a sentry bot their bitch. If you want a real fight, these are the guys you need to seek out. The Fallout Wiki says they have the 3rd most hit points of any NPC in the game, only being surpassed by behemoths and that general from the Operation Anchorage DLC. What's more, they also possess traits similar to that of the solar-powered perk, meaning they slowly regenerate health while in the sun. On the easy difficulty, a single sting was enough to kill me with somewhere around 160 hit points left. They're no joke, but I am. I'm the big joke, and my body is the punchline. Well, my nuclear discharge is the punchline. But even then, getting myself into a position where it could go off was no easy feat. I had to use armor and stim packs to lessen the damage from their attacks. It was more difficult than you'd think, and it still took multiple blasts to kill them, assuming they actually hurt the scorpions, because sometimes they didn't. With their insidey parts inside me, I continued my journey towards the garage. At least I did, until I got distracted by an idea. That idea being stung multiple times by the deadliest albino anything to ever exist on God's gray and brown and green earth. A couple hooligans lured me into the sewer with the promise of candy, then proceeded to beat me to death with their tire irons until my molecules could stand it no longer, and unleashed their ultimate finishing move, which did nothing because the sewer is imaginary. I'm not actually here right now. See, I'm outside. I also went ahead and activated the free cam to get a wide shot of what it looks like when I erupt. It was kind of a letdown. Wasn't very interesting. What was interesting was stealing from a group of Brotherhood outcasts to annoy them. That was the big one, big enough to cripple all my limbs that mattered. There wasn't anything valuable in the one left unharmed. At Tenpenny Tower, I told Gustavo that I'd handle the ghoul problem for him and set off for the metro station. The feral ghouls and glowing ones were similar to the albino scorpions from 2 paragraphs ago. They ripped and tore away at my health until it was gone. Inside the station, I got mauled to the point of exhaustion by a third of a dozen ghouls. They were who took too long to drain my health enough for a violent outburst. Roy Phillips said me a profanity even after I told him how much I hate it when people f***ing swear at me. He died. Michael McMaster took longer than I would have liked to deplete my hit points, and didn't even have the common courtesy to die after being on the receiving end of a human-shaped nuclear blast. After a couple reloads, he did, but the ghoulish eye candy would not fall before me. Even after allowing myself to hit a feral woman, she slashed at me with a knife a couple times, then ran away. Unable to kill that which has been stuck between life and death for generations, I left the tunnels, reported my failure back to Gustavo, met Mrs. Burke at the top of the tower, witnessed a weird-looking explosion. The mushroom cloud was there, but it was missing the fire part of the fireball. Odd. Mrs. Tenpenny was as stunning as ever. I dropped a gift down to the peasants below, exploded another mutated bear, arrived at the garage, and entered Tranquility Lane. Before getting on with the summoning of make-believe communists, I hit my dad a couple times to anger him into biting me. The Nuclear Anomaly perk does in fact work on Tranquility Lane. However, Bradley was unscathed. Some guys in fancy hats showed up and started shooting people. I postponed the challenge for a moment because this isn't real, it's imaginary too, so that I could get the communists to shoot a weird-looking little boy until a nuclear Armageddon gushed open from his chest cavity. But they weren't having that. So I left the simulation, spoke to Mother, and left her in the dust. Literally, I trapped her down in the vault area with the mole rats. Outside, I excitedly ran towards a group of 5 Talon Company mercenaries. The f***ing sentry bot robbed me of my fun, like the people in the Mitten Squad Discord server, when we changed all the roll colors to purple for like 15 minutes. But Father Fate saw my struggle, and sent a death claw to rip the pain away. We ran towards each other, ready to embrace. Then he ignored me in favor of the albino claw f***. The death claw never stood a chance. I exploded. The ordinary scorpion melted into the pavement. I entered Little Lamplight and made my way to Murder Pass. I did this because I really didn't feel like going to Rivet City, or ever seeing my mother who calls himself Dad ever again. The base mutants in the Hell Cave weren't much to write a letter home about, but the overlords sure as shit were. They had these tri-beam lasers that would fuck you up in a matter of seconds without being able to detonate yourself before you die. Again, it required a combination of actual armor, stim packs, and med-X to be able to activate the perk on their ass. The overlords were still not a pushover though. Deeper inside, I kept dying to the overlord, probably because I quick-saved right around the time the laser entered my nostril. The 10-second period between blasts also bit me in the fanny here. It took a lot more effort than I would have liked to get to the test chambers. Thankfully, Sid and the Centaur twins were able to be made dead easily enough. The explosion kept not damaging mutants, so I started ignoring them, grabbed the Gek while taking a surprisingly low amount of radiation damage, tried to kamikaze f*** these mutants with my flimsy body, but my life left my body around the time I died, so it didn't really work out. Fox ignored me as I got abducted by the Enclave. What a true friend that guy is. I got my stuff back and began making my way through the Enclave base. I went out of my way to make sure the scientists were eradicated when I exploded. Met the president, got the vial, returned to the Citadel, and remembered that I hadn't actually entered the Citadel yet, so I had to exploit my way inside. I've done this as a baby. I've done it without moving the camera. Being a sentient warhead with full control of all my limbs made this a cakewalk. This was probably the easiest time I've ever had getting under the Citadel. From there, all that was left to do was meet Elder Lions for the first time, get my armor, and follow Liberty Prime to the Jefferson Memorial. The unfortunate thing is that pushing through waves of fortified Enclave encampments is where this perk would shine, but that's not what you're doing. If you had ranged weapons, you could help out. But when you have to be within 7 feet of someone and on the verge of death just to have a chance of doing damage to an enemy, you're effectively worthless. Just before the bridge, I had the chance to destroy this Enclave soldier with a stupid face, but the Brotherhood reinforcements arrived and stole his death from me. I was 8 hit points away from going off on him. Then they killed him. But the exploding car certainly killed me. Inside the memorial, I died several times, detonated several more, and entered the rotunda. Predictably, the perk failed to work here. I'd love to say that the perk is like my air conditioner, it just works. But both of those statements would be lies. In time, Colonel Autumn was turned into a puddle of corpse on the ground. Someone I never met told Sarah Lyons that we had to activate the purifier now if we wanted to live. She wondered which of us was going inside to do the deed, and I told her no. Neither of us are going inside, and I'm not telling her the code. What she didn't understand is that this is not the face of a man who wants to continue living. This man has seen what the universe looks like inside out, and is ready to die. The purifier exploded, taking both myself and Sarah with it, and I'm like 90% sure I didn't beat Fallout 3 as a nuclear anomaly.